Hello, Babaderos. Babaderos sees. If you have not heard, that's donated to the English language. There's also to stop the invention of new words. You know what I'm saying? So, interbranch. They make little punk kid games on social media because they recorded themselves while the breaching method had them recorded. Since he found it, all sides in criminal and civil cases, with the victims and the victims' advocates and names of the hallway planting evidences, as roles with predicate acts with facts on and off the campuses of each and public, even the difference between public and private schools is employed where and how. For example, they have each age and nature of campus. They have fire campuses and medical campuses, and the difference of that as names also with their kids on and off the regular campuses and their colleagues living next to the campuses involved with tactical delusions as well. So we have wars and we have people involved with things like nuclear weapons, missiles, and they can transverse the earth, but they still have roles with other countries, physically delusions raw, in place of the words that answer our questions, that nature answers our questions. We have black pupils, whites of eyes. We have the same exact color eyes and different color eyes at the same time. The value of the simultaneous is being demonstrated to us. Also, slash simultaneous, where the slash is the active part. And the part that's valued to come that is here yet is because of all parts of itself are one part of it, each part of itself is transferring its value increase, the value of that distinctly to the other part of itself. So simultaneously, for example, it shows us this. These are 5 distinct identities of reception of positive that will only stay positive unto itself. Plants, like for example, tomato cells, have looked through a microscope. They've looked at through a microscope, where and how they are almost transparent. We could see where and how the chloroplast is manifest with 3 identities of relationship to itself as the value, as the scientific value of the identity of what a cell is. It is simultaneously 3 distinct identities of relationship to itself. As one as a cell nucleus, one as a cell body's regular pattern of relationship to itself as physically manifest, and one is as the cell wall slash S as physically manifest. So where there's like the it's not a circle perfect, but like a circle, and where they touch each of the cells, where they form the body of the fruit of a tomato, or of the plant of the tomato itself. They, in other words, with the tomato specifically, the body of value, it also is reception of the gases and their positive or negative relationship to itself. For example, squash, they say it's because of the air circulation. If you put them and pollinators can't find the flowers if you put them too close together. But some plants need more oxygen. I lost my train of thought. So, in other words, this is where and how the intelligence community leaks too. And while and how there are as ones that are shown by the breaching method that they need to hide what is actually recorded and how it needs to hide it. Interstates manifest on and off medical locations. The intelligence community has roles with the name with the uses of that and surveillance with A means B, where they act and think as knaves, where they had replaced when they were kids what our founders told us to communicate. For example, and appreciate regarding the difference of how becoming a country as forced by the breaching method to ignore the underlying entrenchment roles still entrenched, that which were used effectively to measure and maintain the free speech of our founders prevented. And so we have not addressed the extortion of George Washington the way we're supposed to address it. And we were not, with his words and with his communications, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, slash hyper simultaneously, as honesty would have revealed, had honesty spoken for sciences. So the sciences, they have sciences. Okay, this guy's going to be an expert. He's going to become an expert on Georgia. One kid asked me what Georgia was at Trinity College, who's involved with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and intermilitary with Marines and with foreign military too, Air Force, and their neighbors, like a Paul Kelly. He's involved with also religious locations and his neighbors, with uses of my name criminally foreign influence, and with wire crimes with people each year where I went to campuses. They're putting fake instances, fake motivations for it. Timed roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones increasingly, as roles with mayors of towns and people associated with them, intercities connected. Increasingly, New Britain, Connecticut, Central Connecticut State University, and Trinity College, names next to those campuses, have roles with and as intelligence community with foreign and domestic judges and prosecutors and generals, including with Kuwait and American generals. So one associated can't make it up, and if he was making it up on the thing, it's involved anyway. With a Peruta, there's a Peruta, and the name of his YouTube channel is also involved with other syntax of his, with child offenders, identity theft, fraud, slander, where they have the foreign and domestic. See, these are Russians involved with Hartford Hospital, with the Leahy family that faked conversations with me, and with the Lombardo family, who has roles with people with the name Cololo, like a Phil Clo. I never saw him on the inside of a campus in my life. Two times I saw him next to a campus in Weathersfield, where recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed his roles with predicate acts methods, with people in the background behind my name, and their roles with they had conversations with the principals of my campuses, where they didn't want to do things, and they didn't because they were told to do. But the whole time they're putting fake things at the same time. Roles with the intelligence community from off campuses, influencing the retired and standing to hide life progressions. Also with where and how they have a whole bunch of different countries involved with it, and that is a fake site. They have DACA involved with Mexican families, involved with people, extended family members of intelligence community that lives around me, and they're pretending it's only they because they know me through my Saudi friend, but it's other reasons, and that they don't think I know about the other what reasons and ways. They have roles with intercities with names on my street, like O'Brien, with a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University involved with the education department and the business offices, involved with predicate acts with names at the library, like involved also all along the Burlington Turnpike, also with where and how they use remotely the branches of government at formal locations and all sides of the cases at the same time. They are kept needing to hide the same sequence shift self-value, where and how they act as knaves, where and how their actions or inactions too are syntactical. So they have been pretending not to understand people when they write things clear, and they've been simultaneously doing that when they write things unclear. So it is juxtaposed clear and unclear, what I wrote in the description of some of my videos. And where I told lies on Facebook before I noted to you that I caught them first, forcing, they attaching me to arrays of different conversations and different takes on it with different people, where they're putting the difference of this thing. It must be something in the middle because their delusion is raw. So they have been used as knaves since they were kids for the training of the interbranch, all stages and natures of it used to measure and maintain what can't be entertained, and us defend it at the same time. So we're going to have to learn how to use phrases like criminal insidiousness. I am not a lawyer, but also lawyers like a Trantolo and Trantolo, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, as one of the rules with other lawyers on with their syntax on the networks involved with judges and prosecutors, planting evidences with them. They're not legitimately speaking about um, how and why we should speak with the police, how and why we should, because they fake when we speak with them civilly, they change it, and when we speak with them aggressively, like online, they change that too. Then they go, oh, let's let the court side. Those courts' names and the locations already criminally foreign influence involved with it, uses of it through time. So they have been preventing mandated law locations, pretending that they could settle things where there are contexts originally still where they couldn't because there's still collusions. Ask them what witch trials are about. Don't let them take my words. In other words, it's about slavery, no matter who made it up. So make sure you get them on paper because these are people involved with those locations who are also ones involved with wire crimes, with Weathersfield Police, with other police forms juxtaposed at the same time, which is also part of the little rat trap game where they pretend not to understand people when they use words like prejudice properly. Because that's what, and because they're pretending not to understand when we try to counter it, people it is used against, no matter what color you are. And this is not leaving out how black and white use, in other words, black, especially in New York City, especially in cities throughout the world. The suburbs were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while they just enough so they could replace it with means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures of criminal insidiousness natures of ones as collusion with the identity racketeering method worse than war crimes. It has nothing to do with everything he'd made, except for it made truths that have to do with other things additionally, just to have those truths used for lies, to keep out what is actually recorded most in the furtherance of overt criminal enterprises and uses of phenomenon like fentanyl. Even if it was completely made up, they have all kinds of drugs and medicines associated with mental health and with employments economically of motivations as roles with all natures of, the people say, oh, the justice department, because it seems all encompassing. But that's with us breached, it's all encompassing. And that's with narratives pretending the causes of other things, others ourselves. Wherein how the breaching method is the answer. So So the intelligence community has roles next to news locations relative to criminally foreign influence readings of statutes and uses of that were also singularly used, as correlation nature has means to discern. So they're very intelligent men that made the same mistakes I would have had I not had the opportunity to contemplate life that most don't, because most are about racing and contemplating how that fit in to pretend it's legitimately speaking or having spoken for value. Value is a conjunction to the identity that is hypernetic pure, that is hyper invisible but still discernible. The identity that nature shows us is most probably practical and demonstrable. One identity of volume generated more all temporary / lasting space nature, where how it is gained order of itself as a particular identity of forever nature, which is greater than more finite than infinity, which each identity is, as an identity of forever nature, greater than more finite than, while as an identity of forever nature, an identity of infinity nature, because we are only making an extent of forever nature. Infinity only goes on because it's identity of volume as the hyper simultaneous. Its identity of relationship to itself simultaneously, from our perspective, where we can only discern it as an inseparable hyperconjunction to all subjects individually grouped together. So we do not leave out black people's whites of eyes, never told and breach of why, how, so wrong. With answers wrong, not serious. Also answers to why and how the answers are wrong and accepted that way. All treatments syntactically of independence and of unity are effective maintenance. So you have types of abridged sciences. People say, oh, I'm an expert on this country. I'm an expert on this. I know that, in other words. But when it comes down to it, everyone has self-valuing rules with the suburbs designed before our founders were born, and for their torture, and for their extortion, and for their slavery. As George Washington asked us to address, beginning with the extortion, and doing it honestly, not leaving out. So, for example, there's a famous linguist named, my father used to always tell me to read him, Noam Chomsky. Nothing personal against Noam Chomsky. But he has physical delusions, nature delusions, like you guys all when you read regarding American history and the value of voting disputes with the T-tax and the narrative of the syntax, therefore the functions of the Constitution are abridged. Treatments of and non-treatments of property of what really led to the T-tax rebellion and disputes with the Boston Tea Party. While slavery was entrenched north and south, sickly distinctly, but it was better over here. So the difference between that two was employed by the breaching method. Oh, but these other white people were exempt. In other words, the breaching method employed that. The breaching method also is what also caused the revolution. Not just our founders' ways other than what is told. And to replace how the breaching method also taught it. And to replace what our founders communicated to us. So communications is greater than, is more while it is more finite than what is said. Watching the song, so it can be written. Right. The predicate act is in demonstration of a criminal insidiousness nature as an invisible but still discernible, which is valued that way to correlation nature. How things have an invisible but still a discernible identity. This is what languages were revealed to teach, where and how the sciences share an identity. But how they share it is tactical terror from how they've been shared abridged, and to measure and maintain that self-value. relative to where and how the breaching method understood what our founders left us to communicate for themselves, which requires uses of the evidence of where and how they didn't have free speech because of the breaching method slash S, and the slash S because of how the slash S part was through our own. See, this has relativity to Jane Austen's use of the phrase, reported use of the phrase. I haven't read it in her context yet, of the phrase sense and sensibility. See, legalized criminal insidiousness is also demonstrated by nature, and nature being correlation nature, by the identity of the hypersimultaneous, that which is why that is not us, is not the other species, but it is why they have quality aspects. They're distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously like us. Again, there's also a further hyper-simultaneous, that way and other ways discernible. It is the value of sequence truth that really came first, before the order of the smallest finite detail about the Republic now and where it is grounded. Use by our names, individually A through Z. As modern countries, because locations, areas, and states stay themselves self-valued, criminally foreign influenced, differentially forcing each other because of how that's used remotely. Also, grouped countries, self-valued, being and having been hurt that way, while being open and made rich that way. And the difference of it is also employed. So we're speaking with morons when they speak for wealth. That's one of the things I like about Donald Trump. I was for him the first time. I said I was for Hillary Clinton, but it was recorded proof that I wasn't, because I knew that Central Connecticut State University has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with taking pieces of what people say and then going and then fitting people to roles with all sides in criminal and civil cases, victims and victims advocates, as collusions with other natures of organized crime at the crime scenes involved with those cases. Also used by others to pretend they mean what they don't. What's it? No, there are proofs that they're trying to teach people. In other words, they don't know how to react to it. The people who are sophistication and trying to be good for as the judicial branch. But for example, when people pretend that and think that a case means what it doesn't. No, a case is not an actual fact, treatment, nature, quality, aspect, detail, location use, timing use, relativity use. What came first is always increasingly valuable. Information, the fake side difference between the interbranch and their roles with their patients and criminals, overt criminal enterprises and private ones at the same time with their adults and the kids in their families, timed roles planting illusions on and off campus and at corners of streets and next to parks, and with exceptions. In other words, Iowa family is recorded. They made a fake exception of knowing me. They had people film me, and they had other people see it to make it look like they know me. And it was like I knew them any other time on Wethersfield campus. Never had anything to do with them on Wethersfield campus. That one time I was there with a Joe Ilo. I think Angela. Well, he's got more than one sister. I don't know. And his father's involved with them, with the intelligence community next to Trinity College, with a whole bunch of people on my street involved with predicate acts with Wethersfield police and with mayors and with criminal enterprises at the same time and private ones, and not legitimately where and how they have juxtaposed plainclothes police and relative syntax influences and fake motivations planting where and how they have roles again with foreign bodies. These are also roles with DACA treatments and huge economic things that are relied upon by countries where already the bottoms are unacceptable here and there. The suburbs were designed by that we're involved with the tortures of, the extortions of George Washington and of other founders, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non distinctly, and also how they had to counter extort the other founders is also relative to American history as the hyper evidential, which is not documented. We're in how that is, it is documented. You know, it comes through language separated and attached to nonsense. Oh, or I don't like the way he's talking about that. Then we're having a debate about non-facts. The fact is, our founders didn't have free speech. They had to counter extort the other founders. They had to leave slavery entrenched north and south and hide their roles, getting us told to get the Constitution unabridged, which is still abridged so many ways, it's not even debatable. Someone wants to debate it. Their debate is going to have inherent active and progressive to it. Demonstrations of the same thing. See, we have debates, we have a judgment of that offensively, a whole bunch of nays, fake logic. In other words, you guys don't know how to think because you had to replace the short words. You need to learn this phrase, criminal insidiousness, criminally foreign influence. You need to learn that phrase. You need to learn how it knew that it was a breaching method, knew that it was going to make countries individually grouped and together, blame other things, others ourselves, and self-value that, defend that. As what couldn't defend itself and counter properly things like criminal foreign influences. Our names never stood. We never had a name. There was never a portion of our country that wasn't criminally foreign influence. Where and how it counts. Follow mandated law, fix the news predicate acts, and stop making the don't make the president start calling him that. Don't make me keep calling him that. Central Connecticut State University has roles with a sick family with the name Magnanos. There's also a Stephen Manos. He recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with federal crimes with New Britain Superior Court people, and he's going to pretend other. But this is what's recorded. And a deductive Samuda switching and forging names, falsifying police reports with New Britain Superior Court, as roles with rape threats intercities, including on the Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court with the ones further involved with the principal child abuser. And they forced that sustained, and they've still been using the falsified police reports roles and broadcasted predicate acts of WTNH, Fox News, and WFSB with people increasingly who type on my YouTube page, also involved with the names like a Joshua Julian, increasingly involved with predicate acts on my street with people from UConn and Hartford Hospital, Trinity College, and CCSU, with the names involved with wire crimes and acts, falsified police reports, fake motivations planting for when how they use my name for in good ways and or bad. Any way they use it, every single time. These are people since I was kids. Each year of campus I went to, they're stacking fake acceptance of me going some. There's something to do with in other words, let me just check. This is not a good sound. Let me just try to get a different sound or something. Hold on. Maybe it is. Some more gain, maybe. So increasingly people from Hartford Hospital, they have an institute of living on their campus. It's like a diaspora, like the church has a diaspora. It's like a diaspora that's evolved with Newark families involved with medications, and there's a Reynolds family, the name Reynolds, involved with other all different people that are supposed to be, oh, well, I'm one that's against the medications and I have alternative forms of therapy. Those are people also involved with putting fake things in databases, fake ties, fake natures of ties to people, fake motivations planting. There's a girl named Lynn involved with CCSU, intelligence community, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with increasing with a Pandolf family, and names associated with the locations associated with him, and next to those locations, involved with all sides in criminal and civil cases, planting evidences, including there are demorals recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the intelligence community and by themselves, involved with people with the name McCord and Pandolf, also planting evidences with judges and prosecutors on all sides of Weathersfield High School increasingly. There was also a person who did like a drawing cartoon of himself walking, and I saw it on YouTube, I think it was, or on Facebook, because they've been using Facebook for predicate. They knock people off Facebook and they lie about their motivations, including when I gave them exceptions to, because you can't record the police lying, even when you can, just to make sure. I made them record themselves various ways, because I was able to do that because they made up lies where they weren't allowed to make lies, fabricating fake audio and video transcripts with the police as police forms juxtaposed with and as Weathersfield police, and as collusions with people that they have also call in fake things at the same time. And they do little tricks where and how, and while being shown how needs and means to by the breaching method roles. See, there are a lot of things manifest that are shown to the leaders of the agencies and to the lower people and their kids, needing to hide sometimes for their own reasons, sometimes for criminal foreign influences, sometimes just for the location uses, but it's always increasingly the location for additional ways, like parks. The side entrances of Weathersfield parks is involved with people involved also with corners of streets. That's an exception use. These are people involved with databases. People with Facebook have roles with people from Weathersfield with criminally foreign influence uses of databases and of people's names. As identity theft, fraud, slanders, as roles with judges and prosecutors planting evidences, then needing to hide that. Differentially, it's the fault of the prisons tied to them, increasingly together though, and their roles on off the state offices, names on off the state judicial branch offices, increasingly roles with people with predicate acts and child abuses on campuses I went to, with conversations with teachers behind my back. And exceptions were used also, criminally foreign influence tied to that, as people involved with news predicate acts, with child offenders, and with forcing that sustained, with more roles then and now involved with it. They're pretending they don't understand that police could be involved with it. They don't understand a principal could be involved with it. I caught them and him doing more worse then. And now these are predicate acts. These are way worse. In other words, if people want forgiveness, just get them onto paper. See, they're playing games, right? Well, I don't have time. I can't get a job because they did it every place I went. I could get a job. I have to ignore things. I'm not going to ignore things. These are people involved with Johnny Callis. Has a whole bunch of people that use my name with him, criminally foreign influenced, involved with and as former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and various natures of courts, family members, including retired and standing judges and prosecutors. These are sick people with the overt criminal enterprises and their worst patients and criminals, and the difference between how ones are worse than the others, because that array and the difference between it is also used criminally foreign influence. That's why we have to have mandated law followed. Stop pretending people are making allegations and deal with the actual acts they report. Like, so WFSB attached me to fake conversations with them and with others about the World Trade Center, fake ties to doctors as a kid and as an adult, fake natures of ties to them too. In other words, people tried many times to report things when the police are corrupt and there's violence involved. You're either going to get in trouble and go to the courts involved with the violence themselves too, or otherwise you're going to have to deal with it on paper, calmly, because there are people putting fake things in databases involved, and they're lying about their motivations with the kids through time. They have houses near a kid who was reported shooting, convicted of shooting another kid with a gun near one of the relatives of one of the Cololos involved. All the close and Smith families near me have something to do with corners of the streets and names at Trinity College recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, also with their family members extended, involved with predicate acts with those corners. And with this Joshua Stryker. Joshua Stryker is involved with Trinity College, also with the intelligence community, with linguists, in influencing people to pretend others don't speak clear, as they've been doing fake things into databases with kids from the youngest ages, and predicate acts with fax rolls, and uses of the differences where there are counters needed for all sides. Because they have the teachers as victims, they have the kids as victims, they have the people trying to counter as victims, and they have the difference of that employed by the breaching method effectively relative to where and to how other has been told and communicated for our founders. Then they asked to communicate it for them. How they got away with it. They had rules with torture methods, pretending people have delusions, faking conversations to do it. A whole bunch of people with the name Lombardo and with Connecticut, with the Weathersfield Community Center, have roles with predicate acts, with facts and falsified police reports, and criminally foreign influence uses of investigations of investigators and their motivations planting through time, as roles had something to do with their roles with West Hartford locations and the names next to the body dumping spot of a reported serial killer, and people associated with his imprisonment also had roles with predicate acts next to the body dumping spot, and with names associated with that girl who got dragged to her death, reportedly. But she also has roles with the names next to Trinity Hartford Hospital, with drugs and medicines crimes with foreign and domestic military before the World Trade Center attack, with intelligence community, with they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I don't know if it's in what capacity or what, but they have roles with strippers and with prostitutes that they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with intelligence family members, attaching others to fake ties to themselves, fake natures of ties to themselves and others around themselves. Where and how they also have sexual, like Fox News has roles pretending to counter what they're in collusions with, where and how they have sustained uses of the subject treatment of abuses of girls. They confess, demonstrated, record, confirm, pretending other, but pretending to be against it, but roles with medical abuses of little kids, fabricating evidences into databases, uses of the roles with the intelligence community next to their journalist locations, remote uses of the difference between a journalist who is licensed to be a journalist, in other words, not supposed to lie. They're using that to pretend others are lying. They're the ones telling the truth because they're journalists at locations with broadcasts and readings of statutes, roles with judges and prosecutors coaching it, because they get away with it by bringing. They know they're fake with the evidence is there. They know they're fake with the readings of statutes and precedents. They were shown how to do that and get away with it by the breaching method that showed them how to blame other things, others themselves, while doing it. For all the demonstrations of the breaching method consciously maintained, blamed on other things other than ourselves, that which used enforced motivations for roles with slavery, was slavery. It was a distinct form of it, only allowed. It was a distinct form. It was a method using what is syntactically manifest and not simultaneously with that. And where and how and why, too. All sequence shifts are one thing that is commonly shared by the foreign and the domestic overt criminal enterprises in all sides in the criminal and civil cases, victims and victims advocates involved with relative delusions, and also tactical ones. How that wouldn't have been had they come through campuses that were legitimate. So they have people start making up things about others they don't even know on Facebook, and ones with badges doing it. They also have roles with their locations uses, people associated with digital police and narratives regarding the World Trade Center attack have been pretending passions and emotions with their syntax and other communications platforms, and where and how they have roles, hiding what's actually recorded, valuing roles with the military to change what's actually recorded as collusions. So increasingly, they have roles with names at the corners of streets, like the corners on Church Street in Old Weathersfield and the Southstein Highway and Town Line Drive and Elm Streets in Weathersfield and Rocky Hill, both corners of that, attached to Route 3. As people involved with the intelligence community with Glastonbury associated with their kids, associated with a Mike Pandolf, and with people with intercities with Connecticut. Mike Pendle's involved with the intelligence community, used criminally foreign influence with a Ray Reynolds, and people involved with the intelligence community, where and how they have medical corruption and physical delusions with logic experts relative, and roles sticking fake things in databases as roles with crime scenes, also as collusions with interbranch names and all sides of cases, criminal and civil, who also have roles with uses planting evidences on all sides of Weathersfield High School, middle school, the principal child abuser school proven, other child campuses, leaders, and their kids tied to the predators have been involved with that then and now. It's not personal, too. That's why they're not getting on paper. They're coaching the sense and sensibilities of them by having them repeat fake things, including faked and changed communications with everyone around everyone. And then conversations about that, people fight and things like that, because in other words, they're preventing paper. They're preventing paper that's legitimate. They're preventing legitimate documents as roles with all kinds of natures of identity theft, fraud, property thefts, readings of statutes that appear to shield them from that, which they left out the exceptions, such as their roles with this Keene family and with other families like this Fianza family next to the state judicial branch offices, further involved with the FBI and other and military police on off campuses too, with predicate acts roles, identity thefts and frauds, including with people including increasingly tied to Weathersfield Pizza, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and sick people from other nations and our own. And all kinds of sexual circles, they try to make it look like we're involved with it, all kind of ways. And they fake motivations for that too, as roles with the wire crimes of Weathersfield police names and the court's family members' names. Whole bunch of boyfriends tied to people with the name Spada are involved with judges in their family and with families associated with their boyfriends, and their ties together. There are a whole bunch of boyfriends tied to a Mike, I never had a class with a Mike. They have other brothers too. I don't know. A Mike Della Fera and I think a John Della Fera, or I forgot his name. There's another Della Fera brother, a Chris Della Fera, I think it is. And they have roles also with like so they have roles with the different people and their family members with different grades too, as the kids assigned to spread lies and illusions, identity thefts and frauds, timed as federal evidence crimes, and other natures of organized crime rules, and with uses of the differences of those organized crimes, where and how actually manifest our sick natures, pretending they could speak about or the big four. For example, I lost. In other words, please, if you guys want to know how to speak about statutes, let nature show you. Predicate act shows you a criminal insidiousness nature. You guys have roles with criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, uses a right to lie, then you smile like psychopaths. You guys get angry as psychopaths. You guys blamed other things other than yourselves for why and how our founders were left described the way they were when other is recorded, demonstrated for us to communicate for them. Now, fix the fake. Increasingly, there are people involved with medical corruption too, with this Pandolf family, who had with ones on my street involved with wire crimes with the intelligence community and medical families. There are two speech class teachers I have who also have roles with medical corruption with names at corners of streets near me, involved with a Dillon family increasingly, and Jamie Smith and the David Smith and their mother have roles with some guy involved with threats against me of physical violence, with their doctor involved with them with predicate acts. And then they switched, they prevented me from communicating with the one doctor I tried to communicate with, and they switched it and made a fake conversation with me with the other guy who forced me to sign a paper where he said they were going to lock me down and stick me with drugs. And the other one who flipped out and threatened me was the person tied to them. He's also involved on off with names on off where the Weathersfield Police Department is now and where it used to be. As the names involved with him, I only know he was involved there and with where it used to be, where the Weathersfield Library is one time he farted near my face, walked by right after I saw him talking to the Miss Smith, who's one of the ones involved with this David Smith on my street. I mean, a street over on Fairlane, diagonally behind me. And they're trying to pretend it's personal. They brought it up. I had nothing to do with them, never saw them on a campus in my life. They have roles with people with the fire department, further involved with the principal child abuser, and their roles ducking, hiding behind how they have Russians and Koreans involved with these family members, and Italian medical families, and other nations, like with the DeMoro family and families next to the Hartford Hospital that have been, attaching kids to fake locations, telling their parents illusions insidiously with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and names next to the campuses and Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College, who have roles with the families that own businesses along Weathersfield Avenue and Franklin Avenue, like DeMoro and Aiello, involved also with mayors, involved with medical corruption with kids, criminally foreign influence uses of databases, and planting evidences with names next to campuses, like Trinity College and the fire department there. They have roles with the names involved with home break-ins on my street relative. And one recent, hi, how are you doing? I was playing guitar not that well, and I was speaking about everything related from the World Trade Center, which I was in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center towers right before the attack. And I witnessed in that context, leading up to it and since, roles with predicate acts, and with uses of names on all sides in criminal and civil cases, and their lawyers and their sources. Roles also with predicate acts at other locations relative. See, Central Connecticut State University in the Britain, Connecticut, had roles with judges and prosecutors planting evidences with their family members and with the principals and deans of campuses for tricks where they have time roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, and narratives regarding their roles, they're mixing them into roles with crime scenes that are being used to hide what came first, and the roles of the interbranch and foreign with the crime scenes. They're setting up little fake and totally faking the roles with it of kids. They're putting fake audio and video transcripts into databases and keeping there's only three branches of government. Every modern country, they keep their three branches of government as locations, areas, and states, forcing leaders to stay criminally foreign influenced. In some ways, the leaders, because of that, are forcing them too. Because of that, use remotely too, here and there. It's relative to where and how manifest are what people. Oh, I believe this about a dictator, or I believe this about democracy, and that's to answer that question. And so, if we examine that, that's being used as a screen. In other words, the value of voting is worthless if mandated law can't be followed, if our founders' voice can't be free. People pretend that they know about evidence reception based on which assures. We know that there was torture of and there was extortion of George Washington. This is recorded. The people who don't know this don't know it because there was all kinds of medical corruption associated with identities of logic experts at locations with types of countering bodies to types of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures effectively, originally, and still employed to keep things blamed, that the breaching method causes and caused blamed on other things other than themselves. Like how they employed black and white to mean other than what nature tells us with black people's right to life. George Washington had to come to Wethersfield, Connecticut right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War, and he had to counter-extort the people to force them to either help us or die. And worse, because of the laws, the way they were against everyone's slavery, sickly distinctly too, they were able to do this at 13 locations to force the first 13 states to be states and to lie about what their motivations were becoming states, to blame things like a tea tax when slavery against everyone was entrenched, and then to defend that dishonestly, and or to defend how George Washington asked us to address his extortion with his words, but he also, with his communications, asked us to address the torture and the slavery of himself sickly distinctly from everyone else, because also how sickly non-distinctly being left out, that's used functionally by the breaching method to measure and maintain, also distinctly from our own, measuring and maintaining for their own method. In other words, I'm an expert on logic. I'm an expert on American history, etc. In other words, and they want to defend their identities as styles of logic they can't afford what's actually, recorded to be used. Correlation nature is actually inherent active and progressive means. So the identities of experts countering things like fentanyl, real or made up, they have roles with news predicate acts methods. Those locations have types of police forms and private associated with the interbranch, and military, like military police families and things like that. Private ones as doctors, etc. On off the news locations like Fox Connecticut News increasingly has roles with people associated with planting evidences with names on all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the victims and the victims advocates at the same time, and the news at the same time. And at the same time, names with the courts and the police locations and overt criminal enterprises and private ones. It's not complicated, it's only extensive. They get away with it by criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, for example, that give them the right to lie. And that's used where they don't have the right to lie. And the penalty, for example, in some cases is being hanged. And in other words, this is something that motivates their roles with putting little kids in prison in New York City, where if you traced what really was the problem, them and their parents had been tortured, sickly distinctly from the people in cities across America and the world. The suburbs were designed before George Washington was even born to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while that breaching method was being sustained sickly distinctly against Native Americans and colonists but also sickly non-distinct, measuring. It was measuring and maintaining sickly not distinctly, how not discerned by anyone. You see what I'm saying? American history, before our founders were born, people from Spain, people from England, they made colonies in America. More than 13 colonies were entrenched in America, and they were used remotely. Roles with slavery entrenched sickly distinctly through themselves, but also sickly non-distinctly. In other words, it's sick to be entrenched with slavery, and that's a proof of a whole bunch of things. And then and the difference between how they were sickly distinctly, that's also being having been employed effectively. Then for now, where it's still used to blame other things other than ourselves, where our founders left us to communicate about the breaching method that had employed, to blame the breaching method that employed all those crazy laws. You have to be a fact human nature slave to pretend they don't realize roles with it. And that happened originally. And still because everyone was sickly, distinctly enslaved, including our founders. But George Washington, with his words, which people communicate greater than and more finite than what they say. But George Washington, with his words, with what he said, we're supposed to address the extortion of him, which came with how we're supposed to address the torture of him too. And we're supposed to do it not leaving out the smallest finite detail, not lying about doing that. We're supposed to do it telling truth and nothing but the truth. And with that truth not used for lies too, because truth can be used for lies. And with that truth not used to screen lies, because truth can be used for that too. So a whole bunch of names from other locations need to hide uses of fake integrity and their identities. Oh, this is worse. No, America never had a name. Country A through Z, our names have been used tactile as systems tactile from how nature employed our differences, individual group differences, and the species body difference. So it is critical that and how we understand how our short words are being and have been replaced, how they got away with it, as how they employ self-value roles with the people around us. And how they get away with it too is how they change that. They attach everyone to additional fake words. They keep the adults incapable of looking back upon the past honestly and valuing roles of names furthering illusions tied to the ones typed into databases consciously. I caught them with the principal child abuser is another thing. As one of the people with Connecticut, other cities that our names also involved with the campuses of the Sandy Hook. There are also the FBI has roles with more obscure pictures on Twitter and before the sale of Twitter with people with the name Ian and neighbors of theirs also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed being influenced by police in communications with names on all sides of my houses, all sides of my house, who also planted evidences in West Hartford and in New Britain locations through time, increasingly and relative, as their roles with judges and prosecutors also and their family members with wire crimes, with the Wethersfield Police, timed roles with other police forms, and overt criminal enterprises involved. Even the witness protection program is involved. So please get them onto paper and one name in sequence. People, that's all we have to do. Mandated law means that you're not supposed to have to beg to get them onto one name in sequence into branch when you catch them with child abuse is recorded. They've been coaching people to use fake things that they wrote fake evidences when I caught them to change it and pretend they didn't understand me. They hid how they have roles with a Rob Rodriguez and other people with untimely death roles with Wethersfield Police, with drugs, Also, as names rolls on and off Trinity College with that, and with my other neighbors that used to live next to me, and the real estate agent of the new neighbors, and her family member involved with planting evidences all sides of my house for years before that, as roles with teachers I had that were used criminally for and influenced. They're having conversations with teachers behind my back and with the kids in my classes tied to the same house. Because it's a method of pretending people are using other people's names for emotions that they pretend to perceive uses of. Now, their descriptions of emotions into branch are recorded criminally for and influenced, tactically delusions raw since founding. Emotions, nature shows. If someone's describing their own emotions or the emotions of others, only to leave out details or to make them up, or to leave out simultaneous values to make them up, that's discernible. But it also takes contemplation because it also shows us this because of how it uses the appearance of exceptions that are really in demonstration of the same thing sometimes, where and how it shows it's simultaneously nature is showing us it uses exceptions and exception nature additional from any of the ways that we could make up individually grouped or together or reveal. It's relative to how we are manifest individual grouped different slash s and species volume slash s 3 volumes. The other species bodies also with 2 eyes, also male, female, even the birds they fly. The others have, in other words, distinctly, non-distinctly, and hyper simultaneously, there is a shared identity that is not shared simultaneously. Just like we share the species body volume signs, but we don't share it simultaneously. And then further simultaneously, we don't share it simultaneously because the breaching method replaced it. The breaching method made self-valued roles with economic treatments that leave out definitions of success and employments of wealth involved with the torture, extortion, slavery method. All kinds of natures of wealth are involved with Russian, Ukrainian, and American um, mental health experts and doctors who are also police forms and prisons that have roles also with their campuses with countless monies they owe the streets. So we have the means, and we have means to get it. We're better than free too. In other words, all these costs go away. In other words, the suburbs were built before they were designed before cars, let alone the cities were designed to cause negative value nature progressions, acts, natures. Acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidiousness natures like criminal enterprises as groups, as group think relative. The phrase group think is involved with news predicate acts, where they don't want roles, but exceptions are made for them by the retired and standing intelligence community associated with them. They have sustained roles pretending to be using the breaching method uses them into a whole bunch of countries individually grouped together using Fox News measured and maintained, and the other news is as collusions, with the differences as collusions with the sustained treatments of the subject isolated of women athletes competing against men and or being in the locker room with them. See, that's used to measure and maintain by the breaching method what can't be entertained. And it's defended from the real worst uses of overt criminal enterprises and of private ones. And criminal enterprise is plural and private ones plural at the same time with the interbranch names and all sides in criminal and civil cases, planting evidences, and with the hallways of the courts. And then again in time. As the names from Connecticut intercities who planted evidences, and then in the World Trade Center attack context and since. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with that. They are being coached, they're recorded being influenced to lie about what I wrote clear about that, and what I wrote unclear about that, because their roles attaching kids and their family members to faked and changed conversations with child offenders, including sexual, medical, and interbranch families involved with that at the same time, because of uses of locations remotely criminally foreign influence through time. Hartford Hospital's databases with their intelligence community, New Britain Medical Campus has roles with the intelligence community. In other words, criminally foreign influence. A whole bunch of names involved with predicate acts next to the kids' houses, next to my house since I was a kid, all sides of our houses, the kids and the adults. And they have our conversations. Everyone repeats blank, fake things for them. They leave out details for them. They leave out the value of what came first for them. In other words, they're forcing this. They're making, pretending that people have differences and forcing them to have differences because they're preventing mandated law while pretending other and having done so through time. They want to ask questions. Oh, why didn't you react? I did. I told you this. You guys did this. You guys did this. You know, they make vertical and horizontal convictions, not you. In other words, um. So I thank you for listening. And just one of the things he's about. They've been lying to the judges, but with them too, because they use each other's names. Certain type of victim that came through campuses where they were little kids. They self-valued predicate acts with facts, where how correlation was shown. You're supposed to use you have means before you're in third grade to correlate by how the Native Americans were heard sickly distinctly from the colonists and sickly distinctly from ourselves in this trap. Where how we have cars now, we have all this potential, and we're still playing games with the black and white, speaking other than nature communicates. Fear God is all I'm saying. It's native, hyper native pure. The hyper identity, the hyper simultaneous. Its identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that. And it will only stay positive unto itself. Earth's a special difference is exceptions and is exception nature that appears to be in demonstration of other things, but it's in demonstration of the same thing. It's in demonstration. It demonstrates the difference between temporary and positive lasting. For its system, though, that as defined through this system is involved with the torture, extortion, and slavery method. So American history has awfully offensively been prevented. Also, descriptions of types of logic, like such as ad hoc, ad hominem, or slippery slope. These are involved with sequence shift cover-up methods, criminally, federal evidence reception methods, and natures used as criminal and citizens' natures. So a government could agree to stay roles with those crazy slavery laws against everyone that colonization had left entrenched, like with their treatments of Jim Crow laws, also not realizing because they're trying to speak for integrity. They never had a chance of integrity. They came through campuses and the differences of the good and the bad of them and their comparison between them all employed to measure and maintain by the breaching method, but also through our own. It propagated our own needing to, for their own additional reasons, to measure and maintain. Pretend fake motivations for why and how. Roles stay with the same outcome slash S. No one could use the name of any country properly, let alone of any color. Okay, we have black, white pupils, white survives. And Romulus must rise. Republic, we need the Republic back in all its names. Campus Marseilles only feels like games. Ancient gaming system. Thank you for listening. Have a great night. I must recite. Vaccine.